Destruction. This has become one of Battlefield's defining features ever since it was first introduced in the Bad Company Battlefield games, and this time around in Battlefield 6, it is going so much harder than it ever has before, more so than we've seen in the beta. What we've been able to play and see with our own eyes so far has been impressive, but not necessarily that much further beyond what we've come to expect from a typical Battlefield game. But over the weekend, something truly insane leaked from the Battlefield labs. Clips released showing entire skyscrapers being leveled to the ground by a single person blowing out the support columns. This was shown with some gray box testing in what appears to be the Firestorm game mode that I guess is being tested right now. Think of the Levolution from Battlefield 4's Siege of Shanghai map, but on a more granular level where you can apply this type of destruction to any building you come across. Not to mention it's far more granular, with facades of the structure falling off in sequence based on when you start doing damage to the building, which eventually leads to the whole thing crumbling altogether. It's incredibly impressive. It's not quite at the level of what, say, the Finals is offering, which is fully simulated and dynamic, but it's not that far off, and also on a much larger scale, where the Finals had to keep their player count relatively low, I think, to handle a lot of that server-side destruction. Now, seeing this leaked Battlefield destruction reminded me of a Battlefield 5 clip that we saw towards the tail end of its support. EA released this teaser showing a tech demo of a multi-story building getting destroyed. It was an incredibly short clip, but it showed what DICE was working on for the future of destruction, which we didn't get in Battlefield 2042, but it seems like 5 years later and we're actually getting this type of destruction in a multiplayer game. And unfortunately, I can't show you that leaked footage, but it's all over social media and the Battlefield subreddit, and it looks very similar to this tech showcase. The clip shows a player using an RPG and hand-placeable mines and even standard grenades to blow out the support columns, holding up a huge building that's many stories tall. Every hit leaves a huge amount of destruction in its wake, with massive chunks of the facade slipping away to reveal the interior of the building. And it takes them less than 90 seconds to weaken the building so much that it fully collapses under its own weight. After the collapse, a huge pile of rubble is left behind, with some elements of the building still intact, like the first floor stairs and chunks of the wall. But the building is more or less totally destroyed. And considering that one player was able to do this somewhat quickly, and it happened in the Battle Royale mode, which will also include vehicles, we could potentially see entire buildings or sections of cities getting leveled to the ground. And if this mass-scale destruction works anything like it has in previous Battlefield games, it means that anyone camping inside that building will be killed or will be forced to jump out before the whole thing comes crashing down. Now, because the clip was shown in a white box environment with unfinished VFX and stuff, some people online were pointing out that it looked a little bit clunky. I want to give DICE the benefit of the doubt and remind people that it is an unfinished effect, and that I'm sure once all the VFX and stuff are in there to clear up some of the clunky looking animation bits here and there, it should probably look much better. And one of the big discussion points brought up was how this differs so much from what we see in the base multiplayer experience versus the Battle Royale experience. Having just recently been able to play in the new Mirok Valley map, which has some massive scale structures in it, those structures, as far as I know, can't be taken down in this same granular way. There are some bigger destruction events where you can drop a crane on some of those structures and take down big chunks of them, but it's not quite as player controlled as it appears to be in the Battle Royale. And this has been an ongoing debate over how much destruction is enough destruction for the standard multiplayer mode, as Battlefield Bad Company 2 really let players just level entire cities to the ground. And while that was extremely cool, what ended up happening is that a lot of the servers would have custom rules, and then they would allow people to play longer rounds on those modes, and ultimately you would be playing 2/3 of the game in just a completely flattened city with no interesting firefights or flanks from that point on, because you're all just fighting in the rubble of what used to be an interesting map. So very much intentionally, DICE has scaled back on some of that full destruction to allow players to still have interesting maps to fight on over the course of the round. A good reference for this in more modern Battlefield games would be Battlefield 4, With the Siege of Shanghai map, a lot of players complained that the map actually got significantly worse after the skyscraper came down because all you were then fighting in was just a pile of rubble. And when you're playing a traditional multiplayer map, you're often fighting over the same objectives multiple times throughout the course of a round. If that objective gets leveled to the ground the first time you fight on it, then the remaining times you're just fighting over a bunch of boring rubble. In my opinion, it does make a lot more sense to reserve this full destruction concept for the Battle Royale mode. Sure, it's a little disappointing that the traditional multiplayer might not get as much destruction or as much fidelity out of it, but it makes more sense for the gameplay's flow and pacing for a traditional multiplayer to have some limitations here. Now, as a fan of both Battlefield's traditional multiplayer and a big fanboy of Battlefield's Firestorm game mode from Battlefield 5, I know just how important destruction can be in a Battle Royale experience and how much it changes things up. I think it was the biggest feature that Firestorm had going for it and what really set it apart from its competition at the time. And seeing DICE really heavily lean into it with this new version of Firestorm is very exciting, especially with these massive scale buildings. Actually, in Battlefield 5's Firestorm, the building destruction was more limited to the smaller buildings. They had a few larger brick buildings and larger structures that could have small destruction done to them, but you couldn't level them to the ground, and that made them sort of stick out in a weird way. It would be amazing if this new version of Firestorm had almost no limits to the destruction. That would really change up how players approach the map, and I think it's been one of the most important gameplay elements for Royale, where especially if you say have a team up on top of a skyscraper and they've mined up all the entry points and made it extremely hard for you to attack them, well, just shoot out the support columns at the bottom of the skyscraper. Force them to bail out of there. That kind of gameplay has basically never been offered on a Battle Royale experience before, and even in the white box phase, it looks extremely promising. It might also open up opportunities for DICE to experiment with this level of destruction in the traditional multiplayer. They have plenty of DLC and post-launch maps that they can play around with. It would be cool if they gave us a single map that tried higher levels of destruction, and I certainly wouldn't be surprised if this was a feature that would be included in Portal, where you can modify and manipulate tons of the existing maps as shown by some of their demonstration footage. Why not place a fully destroyable skyscraper in some of these maps and start building up small cities that can be fully leveled to the ground? It'd be interesting to see what the player base could do with this kind of tech in a more traditional gameplay experience. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Are you excited about this higher fidelity destruction tech finally coming into a Battlefield game? Are you excited about it being in a Battle Royale predominantly over the traditional game? Do you agree that the traditional multiplayer experience needs lesser destruction to preserve the gameplay flow of a map, or do you think there is a place for this extreme destruction in the traditional multiplayer experience? Let me know in the comments, and up next, if you want to see some of the behind the scenes and what it takes to make your own video game, check out my latest devlog for Sea-Beams, a spaceship action RPG that I've been working on for well over a year, which has its own destruction physics. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.